Welcome, welcome, Mohamedou, and welcome to Kevin Macdonald for joining us today for the talk back. This was a phenomenal film, one of those, sit on the edge of your seats. It was very powerful to watch prior to screening, and again, to see it again, it really had such an impact. Welcome again to both of you, and thank you for joining us today. I know that Mohamedou Slahi, you are not allowed in the United States, so we couldn't have you as a guest anyhow. And Kevin, you're joining us from London, so thank you very much for taking time out of both of your busy schedules. I want to just get started, Kevin, with you. To tell us just a little bit about what motivated you to make this film.
Well, I was sent the book, Mohamedou's book, which was called Guantanamo Diary, by Benedict Cumberbatch, who had optioned the rights to the book with his company and invited me to direct a film from it. And I read the book and I thought it was an amazing piece of literature, beautiful, beautiful, heartbreaking book. But I wasn't sure what the movie was. I couldn't see how to make it into a movie. But then they said, talk to Mohamedou. So I got on a Skype call with Mohamedou, who was in Mauritania. I think at that time had been free for about 18 months, 2 years, back in Mauritania from Guantanamo. And I just thought he was such a fascinating, brilliant, interesting, funny person, and sort of not at all what I expected. I expected a man who was full of rage and anger and, a desire for vengeance on America. And actually, I found someone who has found a kind of peace. And there's something so wonderful about Mohamedou's character. And I wanted to make a film where that character was front and center.
What do you think, even now, as you look back on the film, what part of it was just the most compelling part, or the part that you still pause when you remember the film?
Well, I think actually my favorite part of the film are the scenes where Tahar Rahim, who's the French Algerian actor who plays Mohamedou, is outside in the exercise yard, and he starts talking to a prisoner next door, and we never see this prisoner, but they kind of develop over a few scenes of friendship, and then we learn that this prisoner has killed himself. And this is obviously a kind of fictionalization of relationships, of one particular relationship, I think, that Mohamedou had with somebody who he could talk to through a wall and never saw. And obviously there's something about the sense of hope and freedom that is embodied in the performance of Tahar Rahim in those scenes that I think is really heartbreaking. And it ends with this beautiful, I find very emotional scene of everybody praying so they can't see each other, but they're all praying and saying the prayer for the dead. When they found out that this character, who we call Marseille, has killed himself. So I always find that the most emotional part of the story.
I guess I agree with you. I was really moved by that part as well, and I thought, it also shows the tremendous need for human beings to have that, just interaction, to know there are other human beings there as well. So, Mohamedou, welcome again, and you were it's a phenomenal feat to be able to have someone like Kevin Macdonald as a director for this film, and to have an individual like an actor like Jodie Foster appear in this film about your life. When you think about this film, why did you really feel it was important for this film to take place, and for you to really participate and help make this film possible?
First, I would like to thank you so much for inviting me to this beautiful film festival. And I'm really heartbroken that even though I'm an innocent person, I'm not allowed into the United States. I'm not allowed to visit my son who lives in the United States. I'm not allowed to participate in events like this. I'm not allowed to visit my brothers and sisters. I think in a democracy, people should not be afraid if they didn't commit any crime. And that's exactly what's happening in the post 9/11 world, that people are afraid even if they didn't do anything. This is very reminiscent of a military dictatorship that I grew up in. And so they say in America, democracy dies in darkness. And I truly believe that. The irony of my whole story is that my kidnapping and my imprisonment and my torture was supposed to happen in complete darkness. I remember the day that the secret police, Mukhabarat, came to my house. In the house was only me and my late mother. And they told me to come with them. My mother was very worried. She came to me. I know in her face when she's worried. She told me, I told you, you should not watch the news. You know why they come for you? I said, I don't know. She said, because you have a TV. You bought a TV. And I was like laughing. I said, I don't think so, but I promise you I come back. And they allowed me to drive my car with the police man sitting beside me and another policeman escorting us with the non-market police car. This happened, you know, in total disrespect of the rule of law. There was no warrant of arrest. There was nothing. Those are marching orders coming from the United States of America that Mohamedou Ould Slahi must be arrested and must be kidnapped. No question asked. And I could not back then fathom the pain and suffering that my mother was going through. I only cared about myself. I only felt the pain. But I never felt the pain of a mother whose son is taken away from her with nothing, you know, with no reason. And I could see her in the rear view mirror as she getting smaller and smaller, holding the prayer bead and praying until I turned right, and then she disappeared forever. What I didn't know back then was that I would never see my mother again. And many years later, I was informed in the camp that my mother passed away. I cannot explain to you the pain, the burning, and the taste of fear, and the taste of sadness. And so, because of the tremendous pain, I need to punish my body. And I stood up and I started to recite the Quran, starting from page 1. And then I kept reciting and pacing, reciting until I get to page 300, which is about the half. Then I couldn't move anymore. And then I lay down a little bit, stood up, started reciting all the way until page 604, which is the end of the Mus'haf, the Quran. And the film and the book are a way to put a hole in this bubble that is this narrative that the post 9/11 created about mostly young Muslim men, describing us as evil people. When I know in my heart that I don't mean anyone any hurt, I just want a better life for my family. I want a better life for myself, and I'm not denying that. I was always there for the causes that interest us Muslims, like Palestine, for instance, like Afghanistan. I even went to Afghanistan, but ironically, back then also the United States supported Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia paid 70% of my ticket to go to Afghanistan. you know. And the film was very important to tell the story and to reach another audience and to stop vilifying this part of the world and treat the young people of this part of the world with dignity and with the rule of law.
Thank you. You know, what, of course, was obvious is that after 9/11, for those of us, you know, particularly, of course, Muslims in America, we saw the knee-jerk reaction of our government. They just, they needed to have an enemy. They needed to have someone to attack. So, and we saw this, you know, both internally attacks against Muslims or even people perceived to be Muslims, as well as the attacks that killed just hundreds of thousands of civilians across you know, Afghanistan and Iraq, etc. But how do you, you know, as an individual, and I feel, you know, it was kind of funny just with the emails going back and forth. I immediately realized that you're a funny guy. You know, some of the emails, even with simple emails, you were lighthearted. How does somebody spend 14 years, and you know, you were a young man, of course, some of the best years for most people of their life, in such a brutal situation, knowing that you were among hundreds of others that really were being held without charge? How do you get beyond that? How do you forgive? How do you go on with your life?
You know, I got asked this question many times. How could you forgive? Like, even people insinuate sometimes that I'm being dishonest about it. But it's sad because I'm not being dishonest, you know, because I'm very honest about this. And the question could be, what is important to you? Is it important to me to see Richard Zuli suffer or Mr. X suffer? Or is it important to you to live in peace and serenity in your heart? I mean, I don't need to tell you, وَأَن تَعْفُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. We learn that in Quran. And if we forgive, we are closer to Allah. And I took a vow of kindness. And I remember exactly when I took that vow of kindness for the rest of my life. And I plan never to break that vow. And the reason, because I saw death, you know, and I was allowed to go back to life, and when I saw what I regretted the most. So this was the 20th of July or 21st of July 2002. Then I spent 8 months in Jordan prison. 8 months. It's one of the black sites of the CIA. And I cannot describe to you what my psychological state after 8 months of torture. And incommunicado, I didn't know day or night for the most part. And I was told I'm going home. But when I got to the airport, the CIA took me over when they start to cut my clothes with scissors and stripped me naked. It dawned on me that they would take me to the United States of America. And this, my life, like in a matter of seconds, my whole life ran through my head. I kept imagining going to the United States, to that prison with no English. I didn't speak any English, hardly any English. And I was a Muslim, which is bad. I was Arab, which was bad. I was an African, which was bad. And I always say, in baseball, you have the right to have, I think, 2 strikes, 3rd strike out. I have more than 3 strikes, you know, to be defeated in America. And I saw my life ended there. And then I start to regret, you know, stuff. And I tell you what I didn't regret. I didn't regret not having money. I didn't regret not having that beautiful wife that always wanted, you know, in my imagination. I didn't regret not having the beautiful house. I regretted only and only one thing. I wasn't kind enough to my mother. I wasn't kind enough to my sister. I wasn't kind enough to my friends. I wasn't kind enough to my wife. And I took upon myself to be a kind person for the rest of my life if Allah give me back my life. And if you understand this, which is true, then forgiving people, it's a no-brainer. And American always, I remember this day, this American analyst came to me. She told me, why are you so upbeat? And I said, what does upbeat mean? And then she told me it meant, happy. And I kept, like, when they ask me this many times, I always come back and say, I want my humiliation to be as cheap as possible for the US. And I want to live in peace. And I completely and wholeheartedly forgive everyone, the Mauritanian, the Jordanian, the American, the Canadian, whoever participated,
Well, you're definitely an amazing person. This is, at least, from my understanding, this is what a mu'min is, when you can leave things to God and depend that God will make things right. That's really the epitome of what faith is all about. So that's really quite amazing. Kevin, I understand why after speaking with him, you made this, you decided to make this film. And I'm sure it was very difficult to capture such a personality, to really be able to have it come through in the in the film. But I have to tell you that I think you did a great job, because I felt that I knew him just simply through watching the film and really understanding who he was, at least, in some small way. What aspect did you find was most difficult from his personality that you really wanted to convey to the audience, but you weren't sure if it was coming through? What aspect?
Well, that's a really good question. It was definitely one of the hardest things, because I said it was Mohamedou's character and his thoughtfulness and his philosophy that so appealed to me, and his humor and his love of movies and his fascination with everybody. He's curious about everybody. He asks everybody questions, even his torturers. He would ask them questions about their own life, about why they ended up where they ended up, why they were doing what they were doing. And of course, when you write some of that down on the page for an actor to say, and you see somebody acting in a funny way or acting in a cheeky way or whatever, in a situation which actually normally we're so used to being really serious and really life-threatening, sometimes it can feel wrong, and sometimes it can feel frivolous. And so a lot of time with Tahar Rahim, luckily he's a brilliant actor, and he can speak many languages, and he's very flexible and improvisational. And we could try the same scene many different ways. So we would try sometimes a scene where he was just very much full of rage and anger. And then I would say to him, play this same scene with humor. Play it with as though you're teasing the guards or you're teasing the lawyers. And through trying these different ways, we would find some way to have a little bit of everything. We'd have a little bit of Mohamedou's fear, but also Mohamedou's anger, but also Mohamedou's humor. And so it was really a stitching together of these things, because obviously in real life, you've got days and days and days to express different sides of your character. In a movie, you've got 2 hours to show what he is, who he is. And so everything has to be intensified. And in fact, one of the great joys, I think, for Jodie Foster and Shailene Woodley, who were playing the two lawyers opposite Tahar, was seeing, they used to say, oh, it's like going to the theater and you're the only people watching this great one-man show, because Tahar would try the same thing so many different ways, and they were like, wow, how does anyone have so many different perspectives within them? So that, it was very difficult to capture Mohamedou. And every time we talk, you know, when you do publicity like this for a movie, I always just say the same things, you know, because after a while you get kind of boring and you just go into autopilot. It's what we all do. But Mohamedou, every time I speak to him, we already did one of these a couple of days ago, and then we've done hundreds over the last 6 months. He always says something different. I always learn something. So and almost every time he says, I'm like, oh, I wish we'd had that in the movie. Why didn't you tell me that before? So, you know, Mohamedou's movie, maybe Mohamedou's life would, you know, there's enough there for a 10-part Netflix series, maybe 2 seasons, 3 seasons. What do you think, Mohamedou?
You're muted, Mohamedou.
No, I told him, show me the money.
There was actually a moment where, because I said to Mohamedou, what was one of your favorite movies, one of the first movies you saw when you were in Guantanamo, when the guards, after his period of torture, when he was being kind of treated better, they showed him movies and gave him a DVD player. And he said it was, what's the movie called that Show Me the Money's in? Jerry Maguire. Mm-hmm. Jerry Maguire, and he used to say this line, "Show me the money." So I had a little scene in the film where he's watching the movie with the guard, and then he's sort of walking along, and he's going, "Show me the money, show me the money." And I had it in, but then I showed it to some Americans, and they said, "Oh no, you can't have that." And it looks like he's looking forward to suing America and getting all their money. And I said, "But he's quoting a famous Tom Cruise movie, isn't there? But people might misinterpret it, so we took it out."
That's funny. That's funny. Wow. It's amazing just to see everything that sort of goes into the making of a movie. You know, it's of course the 20-year, it's been 20 years since the American invasion in Afghanistan. And as many of you have probably have watched, you know, the news and the images of the Afghans that were airlifted into the United States, and they still are sort of languishing on American bases. And now we're hearing that I had an opportunity to visit one of the bases that is located here in Wisconsin, our state. And we're hearing that they're going to be here for yet months, and many of them still barely have a change of clothes. You know, it's sort of amazing the way that our country chose to have the knee-jerk reaction on the invasion, and also on this whole airlift process. The idea that there's no housing yet available for them. They didn't even have changes of clothes available. You know, we spent trillions of dollars on a war, yet we haven't been able to accommodate. And these are the individuals that were the interpreters and the bodyguards and everything else. So I don't know. I guess I'm having, you know, gone through this, and I'm just curious if Kevin and Mohamedou, if you guys have any thoughts on this.
Mohamedou.
So after 9/11, Americans were very angry, and we have to admit that what happened, the atrocities that happened in 9/11 had real victims. They had Muslims, Jewish people, people with no religion, Christians, you know, Buddhists. Every religion was hit. So we have first to acknowledge that. And Americans, the American government and American public at large was very angry. And that's not only Christian are angry, like Muslim were angry, everybody was angry. And they wanted justice. And no one can blame anyone to want justice. But the government said, we are going to capture random people because they fit a certain profile, young Muslims, and we will not allow them any access to justice. But justice is the first thing that the victims of 9/11 wanted to see, the families. You know that to these days, I don't know about any successful prosecution for any criminal who committed those acts. And, you know, I mean, this is not Americans or Muslims or Iranian. This is if human beings, you know, are not subjected to the rule of law. They are not subjected to checks and balances. They would act like the United States acted against Muslim young people. And I really think that the United States is better than this, and that Guantanamo Bay does not belong in a democracy, but it belongs in a military dictatorships. Because how can America, for instance, claim a moral high ground and criticize Russia for violating human rights? I remember this day I was in Camp 5 and I was watching the news. I don't know how, but I was watching it. I think the guards, and there was the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and she was receiving these blind human rights activists from China, and she was like celebrating his freedom, and she was urging China to respect human rights, to respect the rule of law, and not arrest people without due process. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I am here. I'm here. Please give me some of this talk. And you can ask, okay, but they don't arrest as many people as they do in China or Russia. Is there any number of people you could violate their human rights? Then it would be still cool. I think Reverend Jackson put it very eloquently when he said, I think something like human rights violation for one human being is human rights violation for all humanity, something like that.
Thank you. Kevin, if you had an opportunity to make a follow-up movie to Mohamedou's story and to the Mauritanian, what would that movie be?
Well, I was talking the other day to Mohamedou about another movie about his life. Obviously, I'm not going to make another movie about his life, but I was joking with him that maybe we made the wrong movie. We should have made the movie about his friendship with Steve Wood, who's the guard in the movie. You see him a little bit in the film, but in actual fact, Steve got to know Mohamedou after he was tortured. We sort of rearranged that a little bit, and their friendship, I think, is a very beautiful thing. And Steve, who comes from Oregon, I believe, Portland, Oregon, and he has converted to Islam because of the influence of Mohamedou. They only knew each other for a short time, I think 6-8 months in Guantanamo, but that he made his daughter. Mohamedou is, I think, the godfather to his daughter. He has been twice to Mauritania to visit Mohamedou. He came once with me when we went to show the movie, and this is a very beautiful French story of friendship. And that's the positive side, I think, to the Mauritanian. That's the flip side, the movie about friendship and reconciliation. So in some ways, I'd like to make a version of that movie. And in fact, I'm at the moment exploring the idea of making a movie about Afghanistan and the evacuation, because I think that there is an extraordinary film to be made about that, and about as some of the issues that you were raising about, the amount of trillions of dollars spent on Humvees and rockets and arms, but nobody thought to feed or clothe, spend a few $1 million on the bare essentials for people. So I think there's maybe an interesting movie about that. But obviously, like with the Mauritanian, it's hard to get the money to make movies about political subjects, particularly to make movies about subjects and characters who are Muslim. Mm-hmm. And I was so surprised when we showed this film for the first time in America, and there was a Muslim journalist, I think maybe the only one who interviewed us, mm-hmm. who said, what's really special about this film? And I said, no, what's special about this film? Obviously, I said, it's great. It's a great film. That's what's special about it. No, he said, no, because this is the first film, mainstream Hollywood film with mainstream Hollywood actors that I can think of that has a really positive portrayal of a Muslim character at the heart of it. And I was like, is that really true? Is that really? And he said, yeah. I'm a film critic. I can tell you that's true. So I was, both really appalled by that and also pleased that we had made a start in that probably quite long road. But I'd like to continue to explore that.
That's wonderful. We'll definitely wait for those films to be made, and we will bring you in. So thank you so much for that. And Mohamedou, before we kind of wrap up here, can you tell us a little bit about your life? What are you doing these days? What are you up to?
So I'm now in Dubai. So this is my cave location, and because Muslims location should be always given, and so I'm writing. I wrote this theater called Freedom for Holland. For Holland, Holland, everything is culture, and I wrote no book that was released in last February, Ahmed and Zarga. And
very beautiful novel.
Yes, thank you so much. And there is also in a movie that came out called In Search of Monsters. It was made by First German TV, biggest German broadcasters. Please watch it.
In Search of what?
In Search of Monsters.
Okay.
And it's my confrontation with my torturer. They went and found them, and they made a confrontation. And my brother's keeper, please watch this. This is a very short documentary made by The Guardian, and especially follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I don't have Snapchat because I'm too old, and all the social media. And I love you guys, and thank you for watching my movie. And please spread the word. And we need to tell the world our story, not let other people tell our story. We are Muslim, and we don't think we are better than anyone, but we think we can contribute, and we can share our culture, our love, and our we are the only holy book that I know that we have in our Quran. La ikraha fid din. Everybody is free to believe what they want to believe. That is in Quran, And thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohamedou Slahi. This is wonderful. This is really why we have, we launched, in fact, 6 years ago, the Milwaukee Muslim Film Festival. It was so that we can promote our own narrative. So others are not promoting the narrative for us. And so it gives us an opportunity to highlight beautiful films like the Mauritanian, and to have discussions that we lead, not others lead. And we hope that this is just the beginning of a long relationship. And Kevin, we salute you for taking on such an endeavor and for making such a really an emotionally uplifting film, and capturing, I think, the personality of Mohamedou in such a beautiful way. So thank you very much. And thank you both for joining us. It was a wonderful film, and we wish you both the best.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you.
Same.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.